Hello, and today we're going to be playing Hearthfire. It was cold outside. The door slab shut behind me. The shining sun from above didn't offer much heat despite being so bright. Like before they offered the snow, making me shield my sensitive eyes. Tarwalk was already headed towards the nearby shed, popping the doors open to reveal the snowmobile inside. He was busy shuffling what looked like nets onto the back, taking up all the room on a small shelf that jutted from behind the seat. There was also something new, a small trailer attached to the back as well. You will have the ride in the front. I stared at him, eyes darting between the big bear and the seat. In front or my lap? My face instantly caught fire. He wants me to sit in his lap? It is the only place with room. He paused, looking me over, apparently picking up on my apprehension. He shrugged his large shoulders. You do not have to go. I will be back. No! His brow arched as he regarded me in my squeak of an outburst. I'm fine, just not used to riding like that, I guess. Sorry. It is fine. He hopped up onto the snowboard, gesturing for me to join him. I slid a little closer, looking over the bear in the decidedly cramped space that was right in front of his rounded midsection. No joke, between him and the handles, there wasn't a lot of space. Apprehensively, I put one leg over the seat, tugging myself around. I found his strong hands wrapping around me, gently guiding me into place until I was nestled up against his front. It is fine. Even though I got an eyeful of it yesterday, I was trying really hard not to think about what was pressed up behind me. Perfectly. We took a different path this time, veering away from where the village would be. Instead, we headed deeper into the woods, several Ace pines zipping by. I wasn't given the comfort of being behind his back this time, the chill wind nipping at my cheeks and whiskers as I hunkered down into my jacket. The path was less traveled, the snowmobile bobbing as we zipped over a few hills of accumulated fluff. It was a rougher ride for sure. I found myself clinging to tarmac to make sure I didn't accidentally spill off of the side. The trailer behind us rattled softly as it trailed along. If there was any drag caused by it, it couldn't really feel it. Probably because he was such a good driver with this thing. Doing alright? Yeah. My answer was quick. Another bump in the road causing me to float just over my seat before coming back down. Do you drive out here a lot? You're really good at it. It is my livelihood. Another twist of the handles, and we were curving around some trees, the edges of a flowing river peeking through the woods. I fish and sometimes hunt. Living off the land? Yes, it's fulfilling. I saw a chuckle bubbled up for me. I wasn't sure if he even heard it, the sound probably lost in the wind. The only hunting I've done is in the supermarket. You wouldn't believe how many other college students I got to fight with just to get decent grounds of coffee. It's gotten so bad that I memorized when the store starts and opens every Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. That is dedication. Do you enjoy coffee that much? I wasn't entirely sure if it was so much of an enjoyment as it was an addiction at this point. Yeah, I guess it's nice. It reminds me when I was younger. Well, my parents, I bit my lower lip, suddenly feeling self-conscious. It's probably not a good idea to just info dump stuff like this on a near stranger. Even though he asks, it's not the kind of story that most people would want to listen to. You do not get along? I paused, turning my head so I could get a look at the polar bear. How did you know? He looked reluctant to answer, his gaze shifting to the path ahead instead of me. It is the same. His answer was short, but I could tell he was trying to sympathize. I'm sorry, it sucks when your parents are like that. You do not need to apologize. It is my fault. I gave him another look, picking up from my awkward angle. Your fault? How? We're here. A sharp turn brought us through a hole in the tree line. A rolling river sprawled out in front of us, the snowmobile driving along the bank before coming to a stop. The water churned, a few jutting rocks sticking out of the white waves. It was a breathtaking sight, the golden rays of the morning sun coming down over the treetops, creating a gentle glow. The snowmobile squeaked, rocking back and forth as Tarwak got off of it. He headed to the back, grabbing his nets before swapping out his boots for a pair of waters. Do you wish to help? I looked between him and what looked like his destination. There were several wooden spikes sticking out of the river that looked like they formed a funnel of some sort. There was twine like netting between those poles, some of it poking above the surface of the water. Is that a trap? He looked between me and where I was porting. Yes, I usually catch salmon and other fish. His clawed finger pointed in the direction of the V-shaped funnel. The fish swimming. His dizzy drifted, pointing at the funneled end where it pinched off and become trapped. So, how do we get the fish out? One of two ways. Pull them out by hand where they are trapped, or attach a larger net to the end and open the gate. Which way is easiest? He let out a grunt, his lower jaw shifting back and forth as he looked me over with those amber eyes. If you were alone, manual inspection. But I am strong. I will pull the fish from the river with a net. But he was already heading towards the riverbank. The large net was slung over his back, braided black nylon rope draped over it as he started to trudge into the water. I could only imagine how cold it was. Even with those boots on, they only protected him from the water, not the chill. The bear waded deeper as he stepped along the edges of the trap. I had to wonder when we put it out here, how long it took. It looked like he might have dropped some heavy stones along the way, seeming to follow a pathway that kept him above the churning waves. Eventually he made it to the end of the funnel, wrapping the edges of the net around the jutting wooden spikes. He fitted with what looked like a gate, pulling it up into the air almost immediately. The netting that was attached began to balloon and flash the scales coming from under the water surface. Even with all of his strength, it seemed that the hull was a struggle, the bear growling under his breath, grabbing at the net with both hands, hiking it higher above his shoulder. One powerful step in front of the other found him, trudging back towards the river's edge. I felt helpless as I watched. There was no way I could even begin to help him with this sort of thing. Not only was he fighting the tremendous drag for the net full of fish in the river, but trying to keep his footing against the flowing water as well. Eventually he stepped out, booted feet casting on the rocks as he dragged his cats up onto the snowy bank along with him. So, what can I do? Tarwak grunted as he pulled the net safely onto a nearby pile of rocks, loosening the opening to the bag. Wriggling fish were inside, glittering scales catching the light just right to dazzle and sparkle. Remove any fish that are shorter than this. He released the lip just long enough to put those large padded hands together, making a measurement between them. It wasn't anything concrete, but I tried to commit the distance to memory. It's smaller than they are too young. The bear grunted as he pulled one of the fish out, showing it to me as if it was an example must be left behind to help restore population. Several scales glinted in the light, the wide-eyed fish looking directly at me. A trail of crimson seemed to go along its underbelly, the reddish hues reaching its fin tail. I realized that this was the first time I've ever seen a live salmon out close before staring back at the thing curiously. Part of me wondered if some sort of otter instinct was going to kick in with all of these fish around. So far, nothing. The fish was gently tossed back into the water where it vanished, a fleck of its tail sitting under the waves. The winds were gentle in the secluded river, and the two of us went to work without much trouble. The fish were harder to grip than I thought at first, one of them managing to get away from me, smack into the river before bouncing right into the river. Tom White gave me a look, but I just shrugged my shoulders with a bashful smile. Sorry. It is fine. There are plenty more. It was hard to keep hold of the fish as I pulled them out of the net, my fingers already starting to go numb from the chill water coming off of them. The fish we decided to keep went into the larger cooler of the trailer. It wasn't too long until it was filled up, the water inside sloshing around with the captured salmon. I almost felt a little bad for them, gills still straining as they breathed their afforded water inside. He turned his head, looking at me for a moment, pausing what he was doing, hand halfway into the net. We know how to cut them up and stuff, right? The idea of having to be the one to kill them was making me more than a little squeamish. Or the ones I keep, the rest were sold. I let out a long sigh. The relief must have been painted all over my face because he smirked. Squeamish. A little. When I was in school, I didn't dissect the frog in biology class. A shudder went up my spine as I recalled the memory. So many memories, so many insights that should have stayed that way. I think I was the only kid who threw up. I said. He seemed utterly confused, his brow arching as he regarded me. It was for class. It was about anatomy, and it just hit me. Did he even go to school? Were there any schools this far north? Did he go to school? Graduate, or... He continued watching me with those amber eyes, the fist wriggling around in his under-yielding grip. I was top of my parents. The fist went flying, bounced into the bin on the back of his snowmobile. There are no schools in Iskut. That must have been rough. Just you and your parents? He nodded, pulling another salmon out of the net, examining it. It was deemed unworthy, the bear letting it slip into the nearby flowing waters. It was fulfilling. I did not miss something I did not have. You mean going to school? Yes, I had friends. They kept me company. I rolled the back of my head, having stopped my grabbing for now, having nearly lost all the feeling in my fingers. Friends, but aren't you in exile? He stopped what he was doing, his gaze snapping to me, boring in. Who told you this? It was then that I realized that I might have said something wrong. The doctor did. He grunted under his breath, a growl seeping in from the back of his throat. The fist in his grip squirmed, flailing around as the tendons over the back of his hand flexed. Of course he did. He grunted, throwing the fist into the bin, the wet smack of the salmon against metal making me flinch. Was he still alive? It was listless in the water, floating along the surface. He could not seem to mind his own business. He blew through his padded nostrils, exhaling. What else did he tell you? The question had a threatening edge to it, one that made me shrink into my coat. Nothing, just that you were out here alone. He said it was Self-imposed? Tarwack looked generally tired, the bear dropping down onto a particularly large rock. He closed his eyes, taking a breath, forearms draped over his knees. The earlier anger he was harboring dissipating. He is correct. But why? What could he have possibly done? Why isolate yourself so far away from the village? He seemed reluctant to answer, his arms crossing over his chest as he looked away from me. It is none of your concern. I found creased my lips. I was afraid he was going to say that. We were getting along so well too. He was opening up. What happened? I'm sorry for prying. My fist opened up, fingers flexing back, closed before I stuffed my freezing digits back into my pockets. He was already getting back to sorting through the fist, using the rock he was sitting on as a seat. His movements were less enthusiastic than before, seemingly weighed down. My ears folded back, head ducking down. Sorry for bringing it up. Tarwack lifted his gaze, looking at me for just a moment before returning to his task. It is fine. You were curious and wanted to help. He wasn't wrong, but I couldn't help but think that I might have taken a step backwards in that department. There were so many questions I wanted to ask him. Why did he think it was his fault that he ruined his relationship with his parents? And for that matter, why did he feel the need to isolate himself? Did something happen to him? Did someone hurt him? My eyes fixed on his face, gaze gravitating to the scar that marred his lip. What happened to you, Tarwack? I know I should be focusing just on trying to get home, but I couldn't help but feel attached. He was lonely, hurt. It was like a feeling that resonated with me. The last of the fists were sorted, the netting empty as Tarwack rolled it up in his large hands. The lid over the bin slid shut, the bear locking it snugly into place. Looking up, the sky wasn't so clear anymore, shadows starting to fall over us from the thick clouds gathering above. I'm ready to go. His announcement pulled my gaze down from the darkening sky. If he was upset with me, it seemed to have faded, the bear back to his normal stoic self. Yeah, I guess. Hopping back onto the snowmobile, I found myself wedged up against his front once more. The warmth was nice, but I couldn't help but think about our conversation. There was something going on here, nothing deeper than just him being antisocial. It took a little longer to get back to the set, the weight from all the fists seeming to slow things down. Eventually we pulled in, the bear cutting the engine just as he managed to pull it inside. He was all ready to work, getting the nets put away and transporting the fists out of the bin. Apparently he had a special gas in the back for them, the bear slipping the salmon out of sight. I will handle preparation of the fish later. The case set with a soft thud, the bear turning to look at me. We will need to go back to town to sell the rest. Is this usually how you make your money from fishing, I mean? Yes. Does it pay a lot? Enough to survive, enough to buy what I need. I felt a small pang of jealousy. To have a talent you're proficient in, and not only that, but able to make money off of it. I really wish that was me. Instead, I was still stuck in college without much of a means to make money for myself. We are more like stuck here now, but we're going to fix that. A whistle of wind caught my attention, a sudden chill breeze blasting past the entrance of the shed. Blowing in overhead was a mess of angry, dark clouds. They congealed, spreading across the heavens as if consuming it, drowning the horizon as they seemed to race towards where we were standing. I got a bad feeling in the pit of my stomach as I watched the storm blowing in. The air grew more chill, forcing a full-body shiver up my spine. Trees bowed and swayed, pines shaking as if they were terrified of the coming cataclysm. Snow shaking from their branches only to be coated once again as a wall of heavy snowfall raced in our direction. Even the puff of breath that fogged in front of my mouth was stolen away by the wind. Before I knew what was happening, Tarwack had slammed the said door shut. His large arm had wrapped around me, hefting me up into the air as if I were a pup. What? With me flailing around, he dragged me back to the cabin, the door quickly popping open before slapping shut. Even though I was dangling from his side, I could see exactly why he had grabbed me up so fast. He was snowwashed in, blasting his head before slamming it into the window. A torrent of blinding white obscured the details outside, the glass shuddering from the whipping winds as the entire building creaked, wood protesting the sudden onslaught. Just as I was about to protest being manhandled, Tarwack set me down gently. Face flushing, I quickly dusted myself off, coughing in the back of my throat as I regained my dignity. Thanks, though, warn me next time. He grunted under his breath. The winds continued to howl outside like an angry beast that was denied its prey. I'd never seen a storm like this before, not even during our worst blizzards. It was a little terrified. Trees bowed and swayed, pines shaking as if they were terrified of coming cataclysm, snow sinking from their branches only to be coated once again as a wall of heavy snowfall raced in our direction. Even the puff of breath that fogged in front of my mouth was stolen away by the wind. Before I knew what was happening, Tarwack had slammed the said door shut. His large arm had wrapped around me, hefting me up into the air as if I were a pup. Whoa! With me flailing around, he dragged me back to the cabin, the door quickly popping open before slapping shut. Even though I was dangling from his side, I could see exactly why he had grabbed me up so fast. Heavy snow washed in, blasted his head before slamming into the window. A torrent of blinding white obscured the details outside, the glass shuddering from the whipping winds as the entire building creaked, wood protesting the sudden onslaught. Just as I was about to protest being manhandled, Tarwack set me down gently. Face flushing, I quickly dusted myself off, coughing in the back of my throat as I regained my dignity. Thanks, though, warm me next time. He grunted under his breath. The winds continued to howl outside like an angry beast that was denied its prey. I'd never seen a storm like this before, not even during our worst blizzards. I was a little terrified that one of the nearby pines was going to snap right in half as it swayed, barely able to see it through the occluding window. The cabin creaked under the onslaught, the heavy wood groaning causing Tarwack to give the walls a second glance. We're going to be okay in here, right? My voice cracked as I scooted closer towards Tarwack, moving up against his side, leaning against him. It took everything within me to keep from clinging to the big bear. Almost as if to assuage my fear, the howling lessened, the rattling of the windows finally settling down. He let out a breath, his body untensing as he moved away from me into the kitchen. A kettle came out of the cabinet, the door clapping shut softly as he turned to look at me. Tea. It was something hot, at least, and I was freezing. Sure, I guess. Though coffee would have been a lot better. Hey, next time we go into town. He looked back at me again, the water filling into the open kettle, the bear having twisted the knob to the sink. Do you mind if we stop at that cafe I saw? I wouldn't mind some coffee at some point. There was a look of apprehension that passed over Tomac's face, and unease that permeated the bear for only a second. Perhaps while I am doing my checkup, it almost looked like he was searching for an out, sounding unusually hesitant as he turned away from me. Then again, he did say coffee messed him up. Maybe the experience was so bad that it made him averse to even being near. He pulled out a set of matches from my pocket, striking one along the side. A gentle flame bloomed, swaying in the small breeze blowing through the cabin. Give one of the knobs in front of the stove a twist. Tomac swung the match over one of the burners. It came to life, whooshing softly before settling on a slow burn. The bear took the filled kettle and placed it on the stove, the sound of steam already starting to build coming from it. The water bubbled quickly within, Tomac looking outside through one of the windows. It looked like the storm was already starting to thin out, a medium snowfall taking the place of the violent deluge we were nearly caught in. We were lucky. He gestured to the window with a tilt of his head. The snows here are deadly. Easy to get lost, easy to freeze. Tell me about it. I tried to suppress the memories of when I first stumbled out of my car, how bone-chillingly cold everything was. It was like death itself was reaching out, trying to claim me. My fingers drummed on the edge of the nearby table, hip resting against it. Have you ever gotten lost out there before? Sorry if it's a rude question. You seem like you know what you're doing, so it's hard to imagine. A few times. Really? He grunted, nodding slowly, the teapot starting to rattle on the stove, a few whiffs of steam already escaping from the spot. Huh? That was more than I expected. I do. But not because I'm a bear. Right. Chuckling awkwardly, I rubbed the back of my neck, cheeks flushed. It wasn't the first time I made a slip like that. I probably shouldn't be too worried. I've had people just assume I was part of the swim team just because I'm an otter. Polar bears are more interested in meat. I coughed under my breath, feeling my cheeks warm once more. Yeah, I guess so. He cocked his head, giving me a curious look before going back to his drink. He took a long drag, tipping the cup up, closing his eyes. I just watched his Adam's apple bob for a while, the silence filling out the lack of conversation as time stretched on. It was only now that I noticed there was a clock on the far wall. It ticked quietly, a pendulum swinging back and forth behind the glass. Tick, tock. The first sip of my tea, now that it wasn't about to burn me, was a different taste than I was used to. It was heady, with citrus undertones. Licking my lips, I turned some of the honey over, Tomac watching casually as I dabbed a few dollars in. Nothing quite like the deluge he had unleashed into his cup, though. We spent a long time like this, Tomac getting up to give me another refill of my tea after I somehow managed to down my cup. I didn't particularly enjoy the taste of it, but the honey helped cut back on the bold taste that assaulted my taste buds. It was just about the only thing to distract myself with, the two of us sitting alone in the middle of the storm. I stared down into the mug, looking at my own faint reflection in the subtly rippling surface of the dark liquid in my mug. It's unfortunate. His deep voice caught me by surprise, my gaze lifting, pulling away from the dark mirror below. What is? They decided to travel here now. He scratched at his chin, looking at me with a curious gaze. You have not said why. You got me there. I've just had a lot going on in my life. I heartedly answered. He didn't seem convinced, one of his dense brows arching up. Enough to come this far, even beyond? His voice was skeptical, and so was the look he was giving me. If you do not wish to speak of it, I will not pry. I looked back down into my cup, staring at my rippling reflection on the surface. Not talking about it has been something I've been doing for a while now, just bottling everything up and pretending that I'm okay. But I'm not okay. The fact that I just dumped my things into my car and pointed it north would tell anyone that much. It's just me. You. I bit at my lower lip as I tried to think of a way to explain something that would satisfy without ripping off the barely holding scab that was sealing in the worst of my emotions. School is hard and I haven't been doing great. I've had some. I paused, thumb sliding along the cool porcelain handle of my cup. Relationship issues, I guess. His brow arched a little higher, his eyes boring into me. Despite this, he said nothing, just keeping that watchful gaze on me. I guess he had his own secrets too, considering what he said back at the river. A soft sigh blew past my lips. Despite our differences, maybe we had more in common than I originally thought. I gave my mug a quick swirl before taking a sip. The warm liquid washed down my throat, the warmth chasing away the stagnant chill that seemed to permeate the cabin. Tywag had started a fire in the next room, but it was a smaller one, just enough to keep things from freezing, for what I would guess. Sighing softly, I leaned back in my chair. The lack of coffee was starting to get to me, my eyelids drooping even though I fought to keep them up. Warm tea didn't help matters either, the heat radiating from my stomach traveling through my body, reaching all the way to the ends of my toes as I snuggled into myself. Before long, I was already drifting off, the soft ambience of the winter wind lulling me to sleep. When I was young. Not much now. Tywag shook his head. I know my limits. I know where the trees lead, the paths to scale the mountains and the rivers. There's not much of this land unknown to me. The teapot whistled, steam zipping out of the cigarette as it rattled on the stove, moving back to the burner. Tywag cut the flow of gas, pulling the kettle off of it. The bare woman through the cabinets once more, producing a pair of porcelain mugs. Or the teacups. They had a distinctive curvature of what a teacup would look like, but with the larger size of a coffee mug. Either way, I said that one as he handed it to me, Tywag having been so nice as to already have placed a tea bag inside the string dangle hanging over the edge. There was a logo attached to the end, one I was familiar with. I guess even name brands get out this far. The water poured out of the spigot, sloshing into the bottom of my cup. Already the pristine waters were turning a darker shade, the steaming liquid sloshing to the top of my cup. He did the same for his, pouring into the mug before moving back to the cabinets a few bumps and thumps later as he returned with what looked like a sugar dispenser and a glass bottle of honey. Oh, you like honey? I found myself asking, the words troubling right of my mouth without thinking. He arched a brow critically, stopping what he was doing to look at me. Because I am a bear? Oh dear. No, I mean, yes. Sorry if that's. I waved my arms around me, gesturing awkwardly. Racist. He dropped his heavy bulk into the opposing chair, a spurt pulling across his muzzle. He uncapped the bottle of honey, drizzling a measured amount into his cup. I blinked, my eyes feeling like they were crushed shut. How long was I out? I looked around, feeling confused at my change of surroundings. Instead of sitting at the table, I was nestled back into the living room sofa, a blanket wrapped around me. The fireplace crackled softly, sparks rising from the burning logs. The orange and red flames danced, swaying into a silent tune as the smoke traveled up into the chimney. My parents never had a fireplace when I grew up, so I guess this was all kind of new to me. Still, it was nice. It had a homey feel to it that made me snuggle back in my blankets. It was toasty and warm, and I found myself wanting to fall right back asleep. A disgruntled sigh passed my lips as I peeled the covers off, throwing them aside. No, I can't, I muttered to myself. Cannot what? The sound of Bear's voice caught me slightly off guard, though it wasn't nearly the surprise it was before. Fall back asleep. I said with an awkward chuckle. Long naps really messed me up. Besides, I still wanted to get my stuff. Noticed a lack of howling wind outside, smiled pain, a hope going through me. I looked towards one of the windows. Didn't help much. Heavy snow having caked around it, obscuring what was outside. You are in luck. It was then that I noticed the shovel that he held in his hand. He must have just come back. That's probably what woke me up in the first place. The snow had stopped. I have dug a path. To my car? To the shed. Oh, right. Stupid question. Guess I'm more sleepy than I thought. Well, I managed to get up, stretch my arms over my head before letting them drop back down to my sides. Diversifying the vehicle. He already beat me to my next question, a small smile already starting to form along the edges of my mouth. Yeah. Finally, some progress. A small feeling of hope bloomed inside of me, a light feeling that took away some of the dour edge of being struck in this frozen winter escape. As much as I wanted to go see my sister, I think I would settle on just going back to my dorm room at this point. We headed back outside, the door clapping set behind us as we headed back to the shed. As promised, he managed to cut us a path there, a good several inches of snow having layered around his home. Some of it even struck to the roof, forming a fluffed up layer. It was like icing on a cake if the baker had an absurd sweet tooth. Pulling open the front doors, Tomrak stepped inside, getting down onto a knee as he checked out his snowmobile. Probably some last-minute maintenance. Bear moved about, tinkering with the snowmobile, checking around the belts for the treads. He eventually got up, heading to one end of the shed, scooping up a gas can before emptying the contents into the tank. Off in the corner, I spotted what must be the generator, a few electrical lines coming out of it before vanishing into the wall. Did you build all of this yourself? Tomrak put the empty can back down with a metal thud, the bear turning back to look at me. The cabinet said insisted. I made modifications for the generator and the bath in the back. Really? I thought you might have built this place yourself. What gave you this impression? Well, now that he mentioned it, I guess I'm being stereotypical. Just just because he's a mountain man, I was just assuming he literally built everything around him. No reason. He chuckled softly, giving me a look that told me he knew exactly what I was thinking. Looks like I'm 2 for 2. I could feel my cheeks burn with embarrassment as I sat there on my feet, taking a second to step out of the set into the open snow. At least the chill breeze helped me cool down. The heat in my ears disappeared as I looked out at the snow-coated pines. Water had frozen over them, giving them an almost crystalline quality, daylight sparkling in their ice. This place really is pretty, a deadly kind of beauty, but it was nice to look at. The sound of Tarmac snowmobile starting up caught my attention. The bear pulling out of the set, he gave me a look, gesturing his head towards an open seat behind him. Without much hesitation, I zipped over, hopping onto the back and nestling in against his bulk. He was like a radiator, natural warmth, starving off the chill as I pressed into the back. Sure, I might have been abusing the privilege of sitting so close to him, but I don't think anybody could blame me. Hold on. I was getting used to riding this thing, starting to anticipate the turns and moving my body along with Tomwax. He didn't even feel the need to reach back and hold on to me anymore. It was a gratifying feeling, one that I took out on his bulk by leaning closer. You're doing better. Damn, we must be on the same wavelength. Yeah, it's not so bad now that I'm used to it. I've never ridden on a snowmobile before, let alone an ATV, mostly just me cruising around in my own sedan. I can't help but giggle a little, a few memories coming back to me. The worst I've ever driven through is campus traffic. Meanwhile, you're dodging overturned logs like they're nothing. It was true, a particularly large one looming ahead. Tomwack twisted the handles as he maneuvered the snowmobile around seamlessly. Just like I'd been doing earlier, I leaned into it, swaying with the motions, nearly tilting myself completely to one side of the seat. Tomwack did the same, one of the skis on the front coming up as we sailed around the jutting wood, snow churning up under the treads of the snowmobile as it roared. The trees sped by, limbs whipping as we blew past him. It was kind of neat that he was opening up on the throttle, the pair of us zipping through an open clearing. Still doing all right. He called out, having to raise his voice over the whistle of the wind. Yeah, I answered, and a solid laugh in my voice. This is kind of fun. Even though I could barely see around his bulk, peeking over his shoulder with a smirk, it seemed I wasn't the only one enjoying myself on this joyride. Do you usually drive like this when you're alone? It was Tomwack's turn to laugh this time, his booming bass coming out over the shrill whistle of the wind. Sometimes, when I feel good. When he feels good, huh? That brought a smile to my face as well. It is nice to have company. Now my smile just turned bashful, ears warming up once more. Well, you're welcome. It's not the break for my life I was looking for, but I'm having fun. Several lightings and everything, I guess. He eventually had to slow down, the foliage getting thicker as we continued. Eventually, he reached a point where he stopped the snowmobile, cutting the engine off with a click of his key. The sauce bobbed as the bear got off of them, nearly causing me to bounce right off along with him. Carefully, I climbed my way down, snow crunching under my sneakers as I looked around curiously. This is where I found you. He gestured out with a lost paw, pointing to a pair of closely tucked pines. If things happen as you say, your car should be near. Yeah, I kinda stumbled away. I don't really remember much of it. It's mostly just blurry images now. Honestly, I think I prefer it that way. I would rather have a slight show than a full account, just for the sake of trauma. Still, the gas in my head stung, especially when I thought about when my face made intimate contact with my steering wheel. Tomwack led the way, the bear moving through the snow as if he were born to do it. Meanwhile, I was sifting my shorter legs through the banks of the stuff, trying to follow in his wake. It was several minutes worth of wandering, the both of us keeping our eyes peeled. Eventually, I picked out a flash of darker blue out in the distance that didn't seem to belong among the other azure shades. For gas, I raced past tarmac, bouncing through the accumulated snow surrounding the bend of tightly packed trees. Oh no. My index finger went up, knuckle going between my teeth as I bit down apprehensively. It was worse than I expected. The front end of my poor sedan was crushed in, the hood looking like it had crumpled like an accordion. Oil had leaked out underneath, dark hues staining the pure white snow underneath it. The truck had busted open as well, hanging up over the back windshield. The front tires were also twisted, one of them completely flat. It was completely total. I wasn't even sure if there was a point trying to tow it out of the snowy grave it landed itself in. With a loud groan, I dropped into the snow, sitting on my ass as my fingertips worked circles around my temples. What am I going to do? How am I going to get home? I knew that this was a possibility, but now that reality was in front of me. "Are you alright?" Even though he didn't say much, I could hear the concern in his voice. I think so. I wasn't. I was expecting this. I didn't. He let out a grunt, not entirely sounding convinced as he moved in front of me. He got down onto a knee, looking at me as he put a large paw over my shoulder. It almost engulfed it, thick fingers clasping around my back, giving it a gentle squeeze. "Are you sure? You do not seem fine." My eyes tried to avoid the big bear in front of me, trying to loop around to look at the wreck behind him. That same feeling, the one that hit me when I first woke up and Conrad's cabin, was coming back, like walls were starting to close in on me. My breath became ragged, chest feeling like it was being squeezed under the pressure of my anxiety. Quiz. My name snapped me out of it, keeping me from tipping over the edge and into the abyss. Yes? You're going to be okay. I stared back at the bear, my expression screwing up, brows furrowing. How do you know that? His conviction didn't seem to waver, though those same orange-colored eyes peering into me. "I'm here to help you." I stared back, captivated by the citrine orbs that watched me. "I'm not really sure I deserve all of this." I muttered softly, hugging myself, feeling the chill creeping up through the pants of my jeans, the hem getting damp with the melting snow. "What do you mean?" The question was innocent enough, yet it was weighty all the same. I'm not sure I wanted to answer, a pit growing in my stomach as I slowly got up off of my knees and moved past tarmac and to the side of the doors, pulling one of them open. I gasped as it fell off of the hinges, dropping into the snow before falling completely onto its side. Fuck. It really was a wreck. The inside didn't so much better. The chairs were screwed up, the passenger seat flipped so far forward that the headrest was pressing against the dashboard. Underneath the master cups and other wrappers, I had noticed a glint inside. Fastened and jagged edges of twisted metal was my phone. "Whoa," I muttered under my breath, looking it over. The only problem with it was a crack that ran along the side of the display. Pressing the power button caused the screen to light up. This cosmetic, thankfully, colors and lines bled in a disturbing mess from a crack in the glass to the bottom corner of my phone. It would still work to help me get out of here at the very least. Most of the screen was still operative. Small favors, but I was thankful that at least something survived. "Do you find something?" The big bear was leaning over my shoulder, peering down into the wreck that I was hunched into. "Found my phone." When that phone threatened to split my face. "It still works too." I gave the device a little wiggle, pressing the side button to allow the screen to light up. Pocketing it, I traveled around to the back of the trunk. Thankfully, my suitcase was still there. I was a little worried it might have just jettisoned during my tumble down from the road. Tilting my head up the bank of nearby rocks, I could spot the edge of it. A small feeling of apprehension went through me. I could see the disturbed snow where my car had tumbled, and it wasn't a small distance. I was lucky to even be alive, much less only having a gas in my head. Turning my attention away from the worrisome sight, I tugged my suitcase out. The thing swung, the weight causing me to twirl before I landed into the nearby snow with a soft crunch. To my surprise, Tarmac was looking over my vehicle, the bear seemingly interested in the wreck. Saying, "He wasn't wrong, used car or not. She deserved a lot better. Yeah, I don't think I'm driving it back out the way I came, and not driving at all. I guess my dry humor didn't hit the mark. Do you need anything else?" I looked back at the wreck, trying not to stare too hard at the unnerving sight. "No, I'm good. It was just my suitcase. The rest of it is just cuts and wrappers and stuff. Plus my phone stand and car charging cable, but I doubt I'm going to need those anymore." I nodded, heavy boots cutting through the snow as if it didn't exist as he approached me. "Hey, you don't have to carry it." He scooped my suitcase off the ground as easily as if it were empty, hoisting it up in one of those massive arms, tucking it up against his broad side. "It is no trouble." I sighed softly. "If you say so." He was doing a lot for me, almost to the point where I felt like I was being babied. I was used to being the smaller, weaker guy, but being waited on like I was a damsel in distress was something new. While I appreciated it, I couldn't help but feel a part of me was mildly offended that I couldn't carry my own stuff. He was already through the trees, my short legs pumping to keep up with the lumbering wall of polar bear. Tarmac had my suitcase strapped to the back of the snowmobile, a few bungee cords holding into place before he hopped onto the driver's seat. The bear turned on the snowmobile, wobbling to life as he tilted his head over his broad shoulder, checking on me. Wordlessly, I slipped into place behind him, my thin legs saddling up behind those trunks as he put it into gear. The ride back was a little more tempered than the way over, Tarmac taking his time to avoid some of the worst obstacles without much flourish. The skis glided over the new layers of snow that the storm had deposited, gripping tightly to the bear I watched as the track marks were left behind in the fluffy stuff. "Does the snow here ever melt?" Tarek's round ear twist, swiveling back as he tilted his head suddenly to listen to me. "During the summer." He raised his voice to answer me, keeping an eye on the path ahead. "Only warm enough to melt most. The mountains keep their snow." "What do you do then? Your snowmobile doesn't work without it, right?" "I have tires. They are difficult to attach." "Doesn't sound like a fun time for you." I said with a sympathetic chuckle, the sound partly getting lost in the wind. "It is not. Lots of mud." "Makes sense. All that water has to go somewhere once it melts." "Almost makes me a little glad I'm here when everything is frozen. Wading through mud rather than snow sounds a lot worse." "Do you usually do all the maintenance on it yourself?" "Some. The rest is done by another." "Someone else?" As I spotted the familiar shape of Tarmac's cabin ahead, we plowed through the tree line, slipping over the snow as we pulled back into the shed for the second time that day. The snowmobile bobbled as he slid off of it, squeaking softly. Thankfully, he let me handle my own luggage this time, the bungee cords coming off easily enough. Okay, so maybe it was kind of nice that he was carrying it. I forgot how much stuff I managed to pack in there. The sides of the suitcase bulging, zipper looked like it is about to explode from the stress. Tomek had stopped halfway towards the cabin, turning to look back at me. Coming. I could feel my cheeks bulging, the pressure building in my face as I continued to waddle with my overburdened suitcase. Turns out that without using the wheels, it was really fucking heavy. Do you need help? No, I got this. He stared at me, a single dense brow arching. Clearly. I was starting to regret what I said. Tarek already at the door, his bulky self turning slightly as it slipped inside. Okay, just a few more feet. My legs wobbled, protesting the additional weight. My spine wasn't exactly helping matters, the lower half screaming at me to stop the torture that I was putting it through. Eventually, I made it into the cabin, dragging my overstuffed suitcase along with me, dropping it next to the sofa before throwing myself into it. It was just as comfy as it always was, pulling me in as I snuggled back. The warmth from the relit fire was nice, the heat radiating out from the hearth as I stared at it. A weighty feeling caught my attention like something was pressing down inside my pocket. Reaching down, I pulled out my phone, looking down at it. I sighed softly as I stared at it, my thumb wandering along the edge of the screen. It's really been a while, hasn't it? I found myself staring at the picture of my younger self pressed against the side of a brawny-looking lion. My fingers squeezed the front of my shirt, pulling on it. Nails pierced the fabric, the pointed ends poking into my chest painfully. I don't know why it was bothering me so much. Maybe it's because reality was finally beginning to set in. It's been the same background for months, so why does it feel like part of me was left behind? A frantic flip of my thumb, I flipped past the home screen. A soft side blue passed my lips as I closed my eyes. God, I'm such a mess. Opening them back up, I peeked at the top of the screen. This is as expected, no connection. I was afraid of that. Guess there really is no choice but to get high up to find signal. And let out a deflated sigh, feeling them flap around as I sank back into the far too comfortable for my own good sofa. Honestly, after everything, I didn't really want to think about it. Biting at my lower lip, I hit the power button one last time, looking at the lock screen and the two smiling faces that greeted me. I had no idea how long I was staring at the photo. Seconds, minutes, hours. The only thing that gave me a sense of time passing was the clicking of the mechanical clock in the other room. Tomek was outside, sitting out on the front porch as far as I knew. Sitting around and staring at a years-old photo wasn't going to help me get out of here. I knew that much, but my legs were reluctant to move, feeling like jelly. Forcing myself to stay, I managed to peel myself out of the sofa, shuffling my way over to the front door. I was already cringing. The only thing that gave me a sense of time passing was the clicking of the mechanical clock in the other room. Tomek was outside, sitting out on the front porch as far as I knew. Sitting around and staring at a years-old photo wasn't going to help get me out of here. I knew that much, but my legs were reluctant to move, feeling like jelly. Forcing myself to stay, I managed to peel myself out of the sofa, shuffling my way over to the front door. I was already cringing before the cool air washed over me, a sharp shudder going up my spine. I'll stop here for now. So the MC was able to find his car, and he got his phone out in his suitcase, so that was all that really mattered as far as him being able to find stuff in his car. So with his suitcase and his phone, he can at least be able to possibly make a call, and also I assume that he has his clothes in a suitcase, so he'll be able to use his clothes if that is what actually is in the suitcase. So I really like Tarwak. He is very helpful towards the MC. He's doing everything for the author when he doesn't have to. And just like with, it seems like both of them have family issues. Tarwak with his father and, well, his parents and his mother or father anyway, and the other MC with his family. So it seems like they both have something in common with both their parents. So I wonder what's ultimately going to happen at the end of this VN. It's still active, but I'm just wondering what's going to happen, because the author has his lion boyfriend, who's a member of the football team, at his college, and the author seems to really enjoy the polar bear. Certainly the relationship between the two are going to grow. I wonder if he's going to either stay here with Tarwak, or if he's going to go back to his boyfriend, well, ex-boyfriend, I guess, now, at his university, which I assume is back east. Well, no, it's not back east, but it's further south. Because he lives out in the northwestern corner of the country. So I wonder how he's going to make his decision, whether to stay with Tarwak or go back to his home with his ex-boyfriend at college. But certainly he is a college student, so he will have to go back, but hey, you never know how things will turn out. So we'll just have to wait and see what the other MC ultimately decides to do. So that's all I have to say for now. We'll continue with Hearthfire next time. Thank you all very much for watching. Goodbye.